So, hello everybody, welcome to our online executive forum on circular economy today, which is co-organized by the Postal Innovation Platform and Swiss Post. The question which we are going to discuss today is what role can the logistics sector play in reducing packaging and waste and in helping to accelerate the transition from a linear to a circular economy of packaging. This is actually, if you want, a follow-up from a webinar from an online executive forum, which we did in spring, which was really on packaging and parcels. And we identified this as a very specific area where we should dive a little bit deeper. My name is Bernhard Bukovc. I'm the chairman of the Postal Innovation Platform, and I'll moderate today's webinar. Some brief information at the very beginning. As always, during the webinar, please keep your microphone muted. Unless you speak, you can speak. You can ask questions, for example. There will be a short Q&A after each presentation. And at the end, after all the presentations, we'll also have a discussion. You're invited to ask questions there as well. You can ask questions, we'll raise your hand or speak up, but you can also write your questions into the chat box. And we'll pick it up from there and ask a question to the speakers or anybody else you wish to ask something. Let me briefly introduce you also the speakers of today. We have Thomas Wälchli, he's the Director of Business Development, Network and Logistics Solutions at Swiss Post. We have Michel, he's the Innovation Manager at DHL. We have Josef, he's the founder and CEO at the Pick and Ship Technology, and we have Alvin, Leer, he's the co-founder and CEO at Packoorang. And well, let's get started. Our first speaker, I would like to invite Michel of DHL to take the floor and to show us some of the trends and some of the things that DHL has been working on in this area. Please, Michel.
Thanks, Bernhard. I hope you guys can see my screen. Not yet.
We can.
It doesn't look like it.
Michel,
you can?
It works.
That's perfect. Okay. Then I will try to do that again. Now it should work, right? Perfect. So warm welcome as well from my side. And Bernhard, thanks again for giving us the opportunity to join that conversation here. My name is Michel, as said. I'm working as an innovation manager for DHL's global innovation team based at our European Innovation Center. Some of you might know me already from the packaging session a few months back, but today I would like really to zoom in a bit more on the circular economy bit. As we from the Innovation Center are very much looking into as well how the future of the logistics industry will look like, we usually publish every 2 years the Logistics Trend Radar, which basically depicts the overall future and vision of the logistics industry, looking at the thriving tech trends which we see impacting how we run our operations or our business model, and what kind of robotics application we will see on the shop floor. But on the other hand, those as well significant developments on the social and business side, where we really look into topics like the growing elderly population, the rising need for next generations, and last but not least as well the topic of sustainability, including as well packaging. So those two topics are really at the core and heart of what we're currently looking at. And in particular, the topic of packaging and reusability has really sparked the interest of our customers and as well our partners. Last year, we spent a lot of time discussing with various stakeholders along the entire value chain on the packaging manufacturer side, on new startups joining the market, but last but not least as well, senior executives from logistics companies, but as well our customers, how the future of logistics would really look like. Conducted a larger customer study on that one as well, asking as well, where do you, as our customers, see the significance and importance of packaging as well rising? And 9 out of 10 really said that packaging is really moving as well up their corporate agenda, to a large extent because they see 3 big trends shaping their packaging agenda. One of them is clearly how can we bring more sustainable material, more sustainable practices, and more sustainable processes into their packaging strategies and operations. It really starts with switching to more sustainable bio-based materials to really tackle today's packaging systems environmental footprint, but really thinking as well down the line and considering the entire life cycle of a package. The second thing is really how can we deal as well with the public opinion and perspective on packaging waste. So looking here in particular on the awareness for packaging as a waste contributor, where, for example, the plastic discussion and single-use plastic is one of those priorities which is always coming up in those conversations. But last but not least, as well, rethinking how can customer experience with, for example, reuse, because we see, being a modern e-commerce shopper myself, and that usually when I want to return a product, I'm usually running around in the house looking for the appropriate box, or it's got really, really easy as well to just order 3 or 4 times the t-shirt in 2 different colors and 2 different sizes, and then for sure returning a minimum 3 or 4 of those products. Last but not least, when we see as well, look as well at the opportunities which have been identified by customers, it's really single-use plastic. So moving away from a single-use to a more circular approach and applying that and rethinking that as well holistically throughout the entire packaging system. So really focusing there as well on the first, on the last mile, on really closing as well the loop and moving away from the single-use economy, which we have in a lot of cases, and really thinking and orchestrating as well an adequate service around it, so that on the one hand, the education of the customer is taken care of, because since 10 years, we've educated our customers to use either the same box to send it back or to dispose the box at the next paper container, so that we can really rethink that as well holistically, so that it makes from a business perspective sense, from an environmental perspective sense, but last but not least as well from an operational perspective. As today is as well about sharing best practices and sharing as well use cases in early stages, I'm happy to bring as well one of the projects in which we've conducted in a pilot stage last year as part of a circular economy approach, and really conducting a first trial on a last mile delivery use case for circular solutions. So there it was really the ambition to basically test and replace corrugated boxes by collapsible and a returnable container, to really use it at a large scale and really try reuse as well from an operational standpoint, which was really well perceived by the subscription customers in that regard, by really rewarding them as well on returning the boxes and basically finding its way back to the warehouse. So with that said, that was really one of those use cases which we tested in a very controlled environment, which was really focusing very much on testing it from an operational perspective, finding the adequate packaging system, and really delivering as well the first proofs that this is as well working from all different angles and all dimensions, including as well the business perspective, but last but not least as well the operational one. As this was really one of the early stages which we started off, we even or are considering right now and testing other solutions where circular economy would work as well as part of the intralogistics, expanding as well the categories where we're looking to reuse towards, for example, the industry standard, which is pallet wrap, for example, finding and deploying and orchestrating there as well reusable solutions, so that we can, in that regard, as well find good, adequate use cases which have as well the chance to be scaled. That on a side note, and happy to hear as well other thoughts later throughout the conversation. If there are already questions, feel free to raise them, because right now I can't see the chat window. But generally speaking, we concluded a particular one article on our trend report on rethinking packaging, where we dedicated even one more chapter with all the use cases which we've seen on the topic of circular economy. So feel free to have a look at that one as well, and really dive into an in-depth view. And now I'm very much looking forward to hopefully a bunch of questions, any concerns, other experiences, and really open up as well the floor to everyone else on the call.
Thank you very much, Michel. That's really very interesting, and also the pilots that you were doing. Let me pick up something that you have said during your presentation. You know, circular economy is very often discussed in the context of, well, sustainability, of course. But you have used a lot the term customer. So it's the end is probably not sustainability itself. It's really actually the push, the driver is the customer, to be more customer-centric, more customer-focused, or as you said it, to meet modern shoppers' behavior. Is that the main driver, or?
I would say to a certain extent yes and no. I think being one of those working for one of those entities which are really centering everything around the customer, my first thought is always basically, what does it bring the customer? And I think we see with reuse a push and pull from, on the one hand, the market, but on the other hand as well, the consumer. I think generally speaking, we need to serve all different needs and preferences from everyone basically being involved in throughout the entire value chain, which means the e-commerce company who is basically selling the product over the platform, the logistics provider, and the end consumer, the carrier when we're doing the different carrier when we're doing it across different borders. I think it really needs to be, I don't want to say a standard, but a mutually agreed and approved system which really suits the business, suits the processes, and suits as well the environmental and sustainable goals. So I believe it's really an involvement of the entire value chain to really deliver that as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Michel. We come back to some of those points later during the discussion. Sure. Let us move to our next speaker here for the moment, which is Thomas Wälchli of Swiss Post. Thomas, you're here?
Hi, thank you very much.
Perfect.
Unfortunately, video doesn't run, and also the presentation, so you will have to show the slides, huh?
Yeah, I will share the slides from my end, and you just tell me when I have to move forward, okay?
Yeah. Okay. First slide. So, thank you very much for the opportunity to present the current thoughts of Swiss Post on circular economy. As you see, my focus will be on business models. So the looking for models, opportunities where we as Swiss Post can place some products. My name, as I said, Thomas Wälchli, Head of Business Development at Postal Logistics, the logistics part. We've been looking at the possibilities of the circular economy since 2015. And in the new strategy period, which will begin in a few weeks, starting 21, I led the team that analyzed the opportunity in this branch. And I will present shortly our thoughts. Next slide, please. Swiss Post is facing in a fundamental change, as you know, driven by the declining of the mail volume and the huge amounts we have to invest in the exploding parcel volume. So we have to find new businesses models beneath our core business. One large topic is to develop from a logistic to a service provider. It's not a new idea, and this was also one of the main topics in the strategic period 21 to 2030. And we analyzed several branches where this shift is attainable. The condition to this fit can be checked with a few simple questions. Do we have today a relevant position in this market? Is it a changing market? Do we have an advantage in this market as a postal services? for example, is it with a service public? And as you've seen on the photo here, we have in the circular economy a position today. You see someone is taking back Nespresso capsules, so coffee capsules. Not the coffee is the important thing, but the aluminium is the important thing. And so this was the starting point also to think about the business opportunities on the circular economy. So next slide, please. So the basis of our analysis was this well-shown picture. What we've called out was the whole normal logistics way. So the forward logistics, the return logistics, and we focused also on the right part of this picture. So the blue ones: maintenance, sharing economy, recycling, reusable, and that we concentrate on that. So next slide, please. Our analysis, we stopped at two main topics. The first one on the left side, obviously, recycling, as you have seen the Nespresso case. I will explain that further. The second one is a little more complex. Actually, you have a lot of different ways of a business model in the repair, sharing, reuse economy. And a lot of those business models, as we've seen in the market, are concentrating either on the digital part of reusing, so platform idea, or in the sharing economy. But at the end, those problems are logistics problems. So you have physically items, you have to track those items, you have to put them together with hopefully a reusable box, and you have to track those items for repair, for example, in a repair situation, on the whole process from the sender to the repair center back. And that's in the core really logistic business, and that's the business we were looking for. So I will now explain on those two topics a little bit detailed what we've seen. Next slide, please. So we start with recycling. What you see in the graphic on the left side is very, very, very simplified chart of the recycling system in Switzerland. This system was created 50 years ago and had not been changed yet. And it depends more or less on those take-back systems. They earn money on the sale, on the retail business, and then will spend this money to collect electronics or plastics, and they are financing the whole process business. So, and it's more complex than shown here in Switzerland, that it's also not only the government, but it's in all cantons we have different collecting systems. So, but the whole environment has changed fundamentally. Or in one of two households in Switzerland, they haven't no more cars. So the collecting point using by the communities is not used anymore. And so there is a lot of demand of collecting, recycling valued goods direct by private consumers. That's the point. The Swiss Post is already in charge. You've seen the photos from the Nespresso recycling, but there is a lot more of opportunities in this market in a few years. So we are ready to redesign this system together with the take-back system, but also with the industry. The industry which will produce afterwards the goods. So the focus is not longer on the simply take back of capsules or electronic devices or what else, plastic, but is to integrate the Swiss Post in those take back systems, to cooperate with those take back systems, and even to cooperate with the industry. So thank you. Next slide. The slide from the circular economy as a process. The second part, as I said, there are many business ideas in the units of repair, reuse, sharing, reusable packaging, but many of them, they forget more or less the logistics part. And that's our position we will see in a few years to establish a system where reusable package systems, the package systems from Swiss Post, the package system from other companies, they can create, they are tracked in our systems. So you can send the units, you can take them back. In our preparation center, you can do value-added services. So and that the base of this business model is that you are able to track all the items, the reusable packages, but also the items in these boxes. So you can track them. You can track them in the forward position, but also in the backward position and the backward process. At the end, we are really questioning to rethink our system. We have an established system. On the slide 4, you have seen our reusable boxes named Dispo-Box. The system is since 10 years on the market, but it's not made for circular economy. It's a reusable package system and not made, for example, for repair solutions. But we will establish here really a new kind of service. So last slide, please. I come back to the slide you have seen on number 4. As I said, we have two major topics. At first, the recycling topic, where we will establish, or we are looking to be a critical part of the whole taking back system in cooperation with the industry, and on the other part, to enable all this repair, sharing ideas with a reusable system, but not only the system, not only the box is the important thing, but is the tracking, is the whole value-added services integrated in the process of Parcel Post of Switzerland. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas. I mean, you have been doing a lot of things in that area for many years already, which is really extremely interesting. You've started with recycling. You said you were moving into into the whole area of reusable systems with all the difficulties, of course, around it. Also, some value-added solutions with repairs. Now, at the point where you are today, what are the next steps? What do you think will be the next steps for Swiss Post to embark on in this area?
This morning we take the decision to establish now this tracking system to really tracking our reusable boxes. But because in the moment we have a huge amount of boxes, used for the simple distribution last mile, but it's not be tracked. So the postman have to take back those boxes. And so each business idea of repair, taking back those boxes is not possible. So the first step will be that our existing systems will be able to generate those take back systems, those tracking systems. That's the one part, and the other part, as I said, on the recycling, there is a huge also political discussion to change the system. Which company will play which role in the future take back system in Switzerland? So on this part, we are in a really intensive discussion with the take back system, but also with the whole industry, because as I said, that the whole system is changing from this collecting point of the community to the needs that the value goods are collected by the customer itself, and there Swiss Post is the logical partner to take this first mile.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Thomas. We'll continue the discussion in a moment. In the meanwhile, we will move on. And Josef from Pick and Ship is with us. Josef, you're ready to make your presentation?
Yes, I'm ready.
Share your screen, the floor is yours.
So let me go to the presentation mode. Can you see it, Bernhard?
Yeah, we can see the first slide.
Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, Pick and Ship, logistics backbone for a circular economy. We heard a lot of solutions already from DHL, from Swiss Post. I just want to quickly recap and broaden the view a little bit, because we think that for the packaging question, the logistics process is quite important at the end, because it's a key element, obviously. And the overview that we see on the slide here is just looking at the customers. We talked about it. This is a picture of our seller, where basically all the e-commerce orders of my 4 ladies at home end up, and I'm the man who has to clean it up and cut it and bring it away. So I spend about 50 to 100 hours a year with cutting cardboard and returns and these kind of things. And I would like to spend that differently. Do you hear me well? Bernhard?
Very well.
Just check.
Yes,
okay,
no, works very well.
Okay, thank you. For retailers, obviously, the whole fulfillment process, no matter if it's food or textiles or shoes, is just a very cumbersome process, needs a lot of space, a lot of material. And if you automated lots of technology and investment, so that's a big issue, and the logistics costs are very high. For parcel logistics service providers, it's a bit the same. Despite all the technology we have, 50% of the cost is in the last mile, and that is basically still manual handling, because all the trucks have to be loaded by hand, and the delivery guys at the end, they have to basically search and find the parcel in their truck. It's actually an amazing job they're doing. And obviously, at the end, we have a lot of packaging waste. And, if I just look at our family, it's really annoying, because if I imagine that, till 2030 or 2033, this is going to triple, then I'm really not happy. And I need a solution how to do that. And probably we just need to get rid of a large part of the packaging. Now, just a lot of things happened, obviously. And Thomas and also Michel mentioned some of the points. If we look at cardboard, so what is the packaging that we use today? I mean, cardboard, we have a push to recycling materials, which is good, right? But we should not forget that this still is packaging waste, and we need a lot of energy, and we have quite some waste of the recycling process. So I would argue we cannot recycle out of the waste crisis. We also had the packaging machines that took some air out of the parcels, so that's also a good development. But at the end, it's the cardboard still has the problem of packaging waste, and the handling and the automation of a cardboard-based process is extremely expensive and inflexible, right? So that's not a great thing. Now, when we should not forget, there is a big move going on towards plastic bags, especially in textiles. I mean, many logistics centers are built with up to 75% bags. And they are kind of, in a way, they're great because, you know, they fit to the size. They're really cheap. Machines are cheap, very flexible. So it's actually cool. But the problem is, on the one hand, that, you know, this plastic is just not easy to, it's not going to end up in recycling. Because we only recycle today 13% of plastic. The rest goes in landfill and in the oceans and is burned, right? So this is not working. And the handling and automation of plastic bags is just a nightmare. Imagine you have a delivery truck with, instead of 3 in Switzerland, you know, the ones that come to our house, 300 parcels. And instead of that, you have 300 plastic bags. You can't handle it. It's not going to work, right? So I think there is a big issue coming to the logistics processes with this growth of plastic bags. Now, there have been obviously, you know, biodegradable bags now, which is obviously better than plastic, but it's also not so clear cut because, you know, not all of them are really degradable under all conditions. And so in short, you can say, yes, they're better, but they're actually only better if multiple use. But the problem of handling and automation remains. It's a nightmare, right? And last but not least, obviously, we have also quite some development towards zero waste. So we have the zero waste stores. We have, you know, refill solutions coming up. Really interesting stuff. That's great because obviously then we don't have waste, or we have reduced at least no packaging waste. But the issue here is obviously how do you safe and secure transport these goods? And again, how do you handle it? Because if someone does not have a transport packaging, you know, the automated handling gets even harder in a way. So, and why did I, you know, look at this from this perspective, not just looking at the shipment box or how to make it better? Because we believe it's part of a process, right? And this process needs to work. And as I show on the next slide, there's also a lot of changes going on. Because the old system of having one central warehouse that delivers, you know, a whole Germany or a whole Switzerland is changing because there's a regionalization going on to be faster. But pick and ship takes, you know, a bit a different approach. It uses, you know, similar measures. So we also have something that transports the goods. The difference is we don't stack it; we put it in trolleys. And we can store goods or shipment boxes flexible in these trolleys. And the whole process gets slightly simpler because you can fine sort these boxes early on. You can resort them with a sorting robot. And you need very little space to do that. And you're extremely flexible. And you can even semi-automate or automate the final delivery. And also pick up. So it's as we think, obviously, it's a really interesting approach, and we call it the container moment for small load. So we do actually a similar thing that has been done in cargo with the sea freight container. We just do it for the small load. Now, and you just gave me 5 minutes, so I have to kind of cut that a little bit short. But if you know, I thought about an outlook, kind of what is to come, and I think the whole e-commerce logistics will become more urban, more regional. We will have more micro. That means, you know, smaller fulfillment centers, more regional. I think also that sorting will get more regional or even urban and more direct. And by that, obviously, we will get more sustainable. So if we look at packaging, I think yes, we'll have more bags. Hopefully, obviously, we'll get to reusable bags. We will have more multi-use because that's actually the only way to sustainability, I'm sure. Although it's as Thomas Wälchli also explained, and also Michel, it's not easy to get the system running. But in a more urban or more regional environment, it's much easier. And also the packaging, actually, that's a point I think is important, needs to ensure that we have safe transport, safe handling or easy handling or less handling and easy automation. And that's, I think, in our view, that's pretty much, you know, how to think about the packaging side. And now if we obviously move on and we think, as I mentioned, that fulfillment will be more direct, because it needs to be faster. Amazon pushes now for the same day delivery and others too, Zalando, for example. And the only way to get faster is basically to get closer to the customers. And with growing volumes, this will happen. So we expect that, and that's what we focus on. This is smaller units, micro-fulfillment, micro-sorting centers, and obviously integrated returns and circular services. Because it's a pity that every postman that comes to our door actually leaves with an empty truck, right? And I have to go somewhere to pick up things. I mean, Switzerland offers now that they do pick up, so they come in the afternoon. But I feel a bit unhappy in a way because I order the next van to drive to my town and my house to pick up, one return shipment. And last mile delivery, as I said, will also need to be faster, more direct, and I hope more frequent too. And if you automate the delivery process, then actually a van or a cargo bike can come 2-3 times a day in your area, right? So you can have a more frequent delivery. I think it will be smaller, more flexible sorting. We call it micro sorting that is needed. So a couple 100 square meters where you actually can do the sorting process for an area. And we'll also have kind of a different last mile delivery by that. And obviously on the midterm and longer term, we expect a lot more integrated circular services that are actually not possible today. Because, if you think of it, if you want to, rent out a textile or a machine you have to someone else, I mean, until you pack it, organize it, pay 8 or, in Switzerland, 8 to 10, 12 Swiss francs for the parcel, you're just not going to do it. It's not going to work. So I think there's a lot of volume beside all this e-commerce that is out there for the logistics service. We just need to tackle it and have it more convenient with less miles underneath it and less handling so that it's more convenient and cost efficient. And that's actually what Pick and Ship stands for, and that's what we are working on. Bernhard, to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Josef. I would now like to we come back to some of those points during our discussion later. Alvin, he is from Packoorang, and he's our next to last speaker. You're there, Alvin.
I am. Let's see here.
That's perfect. So you can share your screen. Yeah, perfect. It works. We can see your slides.
Excellent. Let's see here. So I'm Alvin Leer, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Packoorang, and we're partly government-funded startup from Oslo, Norway, and we've been researching and developing reusable packaging and a packaging system for returns of the packaging for the past almost 2 years now. This is a bit of a challenge with 5 minutes, so I'm going to try and zip through my presentation here to predominantly look at the 5 reasons why reusable packaging is needed. Obviously, slightly obvious some of these points, but nonetheless important to drive home the point because action is bigger than words. Number 1 reason is obviously the planet needs it. I think we can all agree to that. Packaging trash now actually accounts for almost 1/3 of all global waste. And with the e-commerce business booming, by 2020, it says by 2022, e-commerce will have doubled since 2019. So it's alarming numbers of trash and CO2. And 92% of all of this actually tends to end up in landfills rather than being recycled. Reusable products will yield the quickest and most significant CO2 savings. Obviously, circularity is the most effective way to get rid of trash and halt the too fast speed of development of e-commerce and other areas. Reason number 2 is new delivery trends. And there are many trends here that are developing. I can go back to this picture. This is more and more common in many parts of the world. Packages are being delivered to people's doorsteps. They're being left outside because there are services that are trying to be more efficient and more customer friendly. There's, as I'm mentioning here as well, drone delivery is in the future, in the near future, actually, some say. And again, weatherproofing is something that we've focused on, and some benefits to reusable packaging. There are also, more problems with cardboard than weatherproofing or the lack thereof. There's also the lack of padding. So obviously you have to introduce a lot more void fillers. Tends to be styrofoam or plastic or paper. So the flexibility of reusable packaging and all the possibilities that this brings is a huge selling point for sure. Reason number 3, customers demand more. This is obviously somewhat obvious statement. They always demand more. However, they actually expect more experiences now. Their delivery is more of an experience. Retailers in physical locations, if you go to Walmart or Walgreens or whatever it is in the US, or Aldi in Europe, you pick up a product and that's that. You purchase the product, and purchasing the product is the only touch point for the consumer. Whereas in the future, and with e-commerce now, there's also the second touch point, which is the receiving of the package, and that's an experience in its own right. So here it's very important to note that customers, they want this whole process to be hassle-free, including obviously returns of products. This is a lot easier to do with reusable packaging, and I'll get back to that a little bit more later. Damaging as well, damaged products, that's also part of the experience here. If you receive a damaged product, you have a lot more to do as a consumer to sort of get that refund and returned back to the retailer. Number 4 is the need to look green. There's obviously looking green, and then it's actually being green. The looking green part is quite important for brands going forward. Customers' priorities are fast changing now. 88% say that they think their shopping comes with excessive wrapping, aka packaging. 60% want parcels to use sustainable packaging. 36% judge a brand's ethics on their packaging, which is quite alarming if you don't focus on that as a brand. And 1/3 are put off by ordering from the same company again if they receive too much packaging or packaging they perceive as being non-environmentally friendly. Number 5, and the last reason here, is the need to be green. And I'm going to include a quote here from the CCO at Unilever. Sustainability isn't a nice to have for businesses. In fact, it has become an imperative. Obviously, they have a whole host of different brands under their sort of umbrella, and have done a lot of testing and reports that are worth taking a look at. And they've been able to compare how the more sustainably focused products have done in recent years compared to the brands that are not focused on sustainability in their communication. So back to the reason number 5 is basically the pressure not only from the consumers but from above as well. Obviously, there are countries all over the world now that are banning certain single-use plastics. Many countries are also regulating and imposing bans, taxes, or fees on the use of anything from cling film to other single-use materials. And just to wrap this up, I'm going to just go through the 2 solutions that we've been working on for the past 2 years. And the first being Packoorang, which is our mailer bag, which is a flexible bag that we've been developing over the past year and a half. And in collaboration with a lot of postal companies and logistics companies that have given us their input of, sort of what is more important. And our focus here has been how far can we stretch? What can we do with this reusable packaging? How can we make it as light as possible, as user-friendly as possible? We have 2 zippers so you can seal the bags. And it needs to be fast and quick for the packers as well at the warehouses. It needs to save you time rather than add time to the packing. process, and also obviously the sustainability here, which is extremely important. So we carbon offset the entire process. We've achieved a really low footprint for the production part of it, and we use recycled materials only. So we try to use only recycled nylon from clothing, and some plastic bottles as well. Packoorang is the newest sort of invention, if I can say that. Obviously, there are some others on the market, but we've sort of looked to how we can take it further and make it more solid and more durable. And durability is extremely important for circularity, obviously. As you saw with the Packoorang, we're aiming for 100+ reuses. With the Packoorang, we're aiming for 500+ reuses. And these numbers are actually huge because it means you can account for, yes, a little bit more upfront investment, but long term, you're actually going to save you money most likely rather than cost you more to use reusable, on top of having a better footprint. So that's basically it from me. Just here summarizing the financial benefits as well, because there are quite a few. But obviously, we're more than happy to discuss this with you in more detail if you reach out to us and find out a little bit more about what we can offer.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Alvin. Just let me move here. Perfect. So let's get into the discussion now. There have been really, during those 4 presentations, some very, very interesting points. We have been talking about, for example, the pressure from the customers, and I think some of the figures that you've shown here were also quite impressive. What I want to embark on now is maybe also that what you mentioned last, Alvin. It's the financial benefits. I mean, postal logistics companies, at least postal companies, they also fulfill a public service. We all know that. But postal logistics companies, of course, they need to earn money. They are ready to implement something new. They are ready to invest if they see that there will be a return on their investment. I am looking for the strong argument in economic terms. Why or which are the drivers behind should a postal company or logistics company implement a circular business model, going away from the linear approaches that we have used so far? What's the economic main argument to do that? Who has an answer to that? Maybe Michel, you have one?
Probably I can start and leave the floor to everyone else. I think I mean we see, I think from a customer perspective, we see that there is certainly a push. From a corporate perspective, including now logistics provider in the postal segment, but as well parcel segment, there are the infrastructure is there, and reverse logistics, which is right now, I mean, the circular approach, and which makes it circular, is as well something which, I mean, is performed and happening as well as part of the business model. So clearly, I think there is as well an infrastructure and a need there, but I think the economics behind it need to play as well in favor for it.
Thomas, what's your view on that?
I agree, and you have also to think about that. At the moment, that the great problem is the reverse logistics. There is no you can earn money with that because the linear logistics way, the linear system is cheap. Your plastic can is been thrown away, so you have no costs, but that will change. We've seen it on a chart today that it will cost not to be circular in a few years. So you have to prepare now to be ready that the moment will come when the circular economy and circular logistics, the reverse logistics, has its worth. Today is worthless, and so there's no business cases on it.
Will it be driven by taxes, for example?
By taxes, but also by the customer. The customer doesn't want to have a lot of plastic bags to throw away. It's also the sensibility. It's the whole discussion about climate change that plays a role. So the customer is more aware, and in the meantime, also the government with taxes and restrictions will come. So this market, it begins to play. Today it isn't a very charmless thing, but in a few years it will has its own value.
Okay, so what you're saying also is that today it's simply too cheap, or not too cheap, it's maybe there, but it's very cheap to operate on a linear model. The cardboard boxes are not expensive, and the disposal of them as well isn't too costly. But this will change. That's your view. Alvin, what is your view on that?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I just had a meeting last week with one of the postal services, a country's postal service in the Nordics. I'm not going to name any names right now, but basically they were talking about the sustainability debt that they had for not, you talk about innovation debt, but there's such a thing as sustainability debt. And that's going to come into play more and more in the coming years. You see that in the statistics and the reports already, that if you lag behind and don't make an investment now, you're going to lag behind later, and it's going to be more difficult to sort of catch up. And definitely the pressures from above in terms of governments now are piling on, as well as the consumers from below as well. That the current system is not going to be the same in a few years, and it's moving really fast. So I think that the cost of the linear system is going to double easily in the coming years.
Josef, what is your view on this?
My view is that the costs, of course, are already here. We just don't see them, right? Because in Switzerland, for example, most of the waste is just burned. So they are actually not interested that use, safe packaging waste, because they want to utilize their plants, right? But it's clear that the costs are here. We have to collect the cardboard and look at the complicated process to collect it and to get it to recycling. It's just nobody sees those costs. It's absolutely clear that the packaging creates an enormous amount of cost in the fulfillment, so in the whole supply chain. But no, this is paid on by four different parties, and nobody's responsible for it and counts it. So my firm belief is that to say that, and I also agree, of course, that the costs will rise, right? So recycling will cost much more, and there also will be bans on certain materials, and so legal restrictions. But I don't think that we can assume that we can charge the customers much more, because the issue in the future, right, for a recycling system, because the problem is that basically the average order size and order values, they are not going dramatically up in most areas. So they're around, 30, 40, 50 euros. And so, we have to find ways to take money out of the system, because else I think we will not finance circular systems. And if we have, bags that we need to clean and inspect, this is, a Swiss franc or two, maybe three, I don't know. So I'm not sure how we want to get that into the system. I think we should be faster and basically reap more benefits.
Thank you. There is a question that came in. As you know, there is a move toward box-on-demand technologies. How real is it, and is it considered part of the circular economy? Who would like to answer that question? Michel and Thomas, box on demand, is that something that DHL Swiss Post is thinking about or using?
Probably, I think a good start, yes. So clearly box on demand is part of the automation agenda, and it is one area which is downsizing as well. The overall corrugate span, it's reducing the air ratio, so clearly we see that. But as it's part of stationary automation, you need as well a certain performance in terms of volume, and you clearly need to have that as well to justify that invest, and would mean as well it's right now still more suited for larger warehouses and operations.
I would have one comment because I think box on demand you could also kind of extend the meaning a little bit, because you know, if we think of the whole sharing economy, I mean, there's a lot of volume out there. You know, Thomas Wälchli talked about recycling. I think there's much more, because there we talk about a lot of things like sharing, rental, reuse, recycling, but actually the logistics not there to do that, because you're not going to kind of rent out a machine you have to someone else, or you know, clothing you might want to sell. If the process is so complicated, till you have packaging, till you've packed it, you labeled it, you brought it somewhere, and you paid the shipping costs, you're just not going to do it. So if we find ways to really have circular models that are much cheaper and much more efficient, then I think box on demand would be, I have, you know, a couple of trousers to rent or to sell, and I basically click and I get the box that I can fill, and the box goes on in the circle to the customer and probably back, right?
Yeah. We have received another question here that comes back to the one that we had that I had asked before about the economic argument. So if you have those ideas about recycling, reusability of items, and all these other areas where you can become active, all these changes you want to implement to your system, you have to ask for the money internally. How do you justify it? Is it really just look into the future and saying, okay, we have to be ready because in 4 or 5 years or whatever, the market will simply demand it, and the authorities as well? Or is there something else that makes it compelling to do it now? To say, okay, we can save costs, we can make money with it.
Bernhard, maybe I can jump in. This is Philip Roos.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Does it answer the question?
Yeah, well, it's indeed actually a combination of both the previous question and this one. So in the previous question, I don't know exactly who said it, but they talked about quite a big investment for getting packaging on demand. However, we deliver a packaging on demand solution for SMEs, which comes at 450 in the month if you want to. So that's a rent that most SMEs can afford. And to combine it then with the current question, you are indeed saving on packaging, on filler materials, on dimensional weight costs, and all these different kinds of costs that come along with having two big boxes actually. So we kind of solved that problem already. Okay.
Thomas, I mean, you have implemented quite many solutions in circular economy, recycling, reusability. What was your main argument towards the financial department? How did they buy into it, and how could you convince them to really do this as a strategy?
That's a good question. Our products that are in place, they aren't our EBIT burner products, we can say. So it's a mix of to show the sustainability of the Swiss Post, to create new products. We in this part we are really a little bit in looking and finding our way to the future. And someone said the costs are there, and we can't. Yes, that's correct. But to establish a circular service, you have the cost on your side, and you have to see that the products also in logistics that it works on a financial report. So yes, it's not today. It's a hard thing to establish something in this area, but you have at the moment to argument with sensibility or with the strategic approach of the changing of the system, and therefore you find also the support on the higher management.
Yeah.
It's not the financial result at the end that make them happy.
I think that's because, or one of the reasons probably is that Swiss Post has such an innovation culture, and it's accepted to do new things, even if it means taking some risks and you don't really know what the outcome is. But this is all about innovation and saying, okay, we have to do it. It will be necessary in the future, and so let's embark on it. We have come to the end of this online executive forum. I'm sorry we have to stop here simply because the 1 hour is over, and I think we could really go on once again for a long time with the discussion. This circular economy topic is really one of those hot topics. I'm sure we hear a lot about in the coming months and years. There we will see new business models. We will see also more pressure from the governments, I agree, but certainly more pressure also from the customers. This new buying behaviors and the new customer demands will certainly also help to reshape that part of the industry. I would like to thank at this point all our speakers, all our participants, and everybody else who joined in the discussion. It was a very, very interesting webinar again. With a lot of content, again, join us next time. I hope you will be able to do so. We'll send you after this event a short follow-up with a link to the video, because as I mentioned before, we'll record this webinar, or it was recorded. We'll put it on YouTube, and you can see there. So you can look through all the slides again and listen to all speeches again, of course. If you have any questions or feedback, please do not hesitate to contact me. Let's stay in touch. Let's continue the discussion. And thanks again to everybody. See you next time again. Goodbye.